Sorry about that. Got interrupted by my father. Okay, let's go back to Chapter 4. Chapter 4, Samurai Clan. Excuse me. Kiyouku had enough money to afford a bus ride back to the dojo. Although she knew she would be leaving behind her old life in the city for the idyllic scenery of the countryside, she was happier than she could ever be. Each moment presented her a new opportunity to learn about her daughter. Kiyouku soon met Sayuri's 7 brothers and sisters, the pupils of the dojo, and at last her mom and dad. Sayuri's adoptive mother and father were so ecstatic to see her returning home that they wept in elation, hugged her, and kissed her cheeks non-stop. "You don't need to be sad. I told you I'd be back," Sayuri said, teasing her parents a bit. Kiyouku thought that perhaps she would be chastised by the 2 parents that had raised Sayuri for 16 years, but they simply took her into their arms and welcomed her to the clan. "We know you're a wanderer as well. If you are in need of anything, we'll do our best to provide you with food, clothing, and board," Akito said intuitively. It was uncanny how he could look a person in the eyes and sense their soul. Kiyouku shivered at his perception, but he was right. She had been a bit down on her luck recently after the company she had worked for had gone belly up. She was going to start looking for work in the weeks to come, and no matter how long it took for her to actually get a job and earn enough money to own an apartment, Akito and Sakura would help keep her nurtured and throw in some martial arts as well. Kiyouku didn't know the first thing about kendo or karate, but she was more interested in the way of open hands than with the way of the sword. Sakura was more than delighted to help her learn and could see much potential in her. It would take time for Kiyouku to overcome her initial lack of self-confidence, but her aptitude to learn something new was immense and swift. It took about 9 months for Kiyouku to find a new job that would pay for an apartment that could house 3 people. Sayuri meant that she would have to say goodbye to the family she knew and return to the family she had just become a part of. Kiyouku had met a handsome, intelligent accountant named Michu, who treated her like a queen, who made her feel absolutely divine. Michu had no experience with children, but upon meeting Sayuri, he connected with her spirit. It was hard not to, because she was so delightful and engaging. Though Sayuri adapted quickly to life in the city with her mother and father, she would often return to the country to visit her adoptive family. In her new school setting, she had become the head of a kendo club and was president of the Martial Arts Association. She was a small package of fury in competition, but she found it strange that she had not heard much from her friend Hirohito. Hiro was still back at the dojo, trying to muster up enough guts to write Sayuri a letter. He had done everything in his power to get Sayuri to notice him, even when she had visited him the last time. He had been unable to defeat her in battle. He vowed that this time it would be different, and he would finally kiss her, even if it ended in him getting slapped. Secretly, though, he prayed that her hand would stroke his face and pat it gently. Chapter 5. Hiro Victorious. Sayuri was blossoming more and more into a gorgeous woman day by day, and by the time she returned to visit her adoptive family, Hiro too had grown into a handsome man. He still wore glasses that shielded his dark violet eyes, but he had become stronger over time. He knew now, more than ever, he could probably beat Sayuri in a sparring match, and was looking forward to proving it. Akito called the 2 to face each other in the center of the dojo. The 2 friends bowed, as they typically did. It was like old times. Sayuri had never been challenged by her peers, but Hiro was the perfect match. He moved even quicker than what she could remember, but she was like the wind, unable to be caught. Then he reached for something in his pocket. It was the piece of candy he had been holding on to. Sayuri smelled the sweetness of the chocolate and sighed. He had her exactly where he wanted her now. He was able to hit her in the back and won the match. "If you hadn't had that chocolate, I would have won," Sayuri protested. "But I kept it just because I wanted to give it to you. All this time I have been meaning to write you and tell you that I love you," Hiro said sheepishly, his cheeks turning red. Sayuri was surprised at the confession, but was ultimately touched by his gesture. She had never thought of Hiro romantically before, but in the past she had entertained a few notions of the possibility of becoming his girlfriend. "Maybe we can start dating like normal girlfriends and boyfriends do," Sayuri offered, chuckling merrily. Hiro felt like dancing wildly in that moment. He had never envisioned his humble request to the gods being responded to in this manner, but he had said a silent prayer of thanks for them answering him. Of course we can, Sai. We'll keep in touch as much as possible and promise not to allow anyone to come between us, Hiro answered. He embraced her and kissed her on the nose. Again she blushed floridly. Sorry if that was too forward, but I cannot help myself sometimes, he added with a light-hearted chuckle. Epilogue. Over the years, Saiyuri and Hiro became closer and learned more about each other as nearly inseparable lovers. As soon as they became adults and finished college, they were married nearby the dojo where they had grown up. There was soon the pitter-patter of tiny feet in Sayuri's house. She and Hiro had become the proud parents to twin boys, Ryuta and Genki. Ryuta was the name of Hiro's father, and Genki had been named after a beloved sparring partner of both of them that had followed them into the college and, strangely enough, had become their pediatrician. But the doctor didn't play favorites with the boys. He loved them equally as he did Hiro and Sayuri. Sayuri's parents, both birth and adoptive, grew to love the little boys and hoped that they would become martial artists someday. It was bound to happen since it was in their blood. But as for the present time, they were loved dearly by the vast community that surrounded them, and they couldn't have asked for a better pair of parents. Sure, they were fallible like any other parents were, but they would learn and mature in knowledge, humility, discipline, strength, joy, and most importantly, love. The end.